The Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship on Thursday night in the last basketball game ever played at Oracle Arena in Oakland, California. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors were hoping to win Game 6 and force a Game 7 in Toronto. But Toronto wins the last game played. They're making it a very memorable final game, although for the Canadian team. And that led to our inspiration for today's draft. The most memorable final games ever played at an NFL stadium. Any NFL stadium, last game ever played there. Memorable is what matters. Doesn't matter who wins or loses. What matters is how memorable it is. Big Cat, you get to call tails. The rigged coin toss will go in your favor because you haven't been on the show for a month, and you'll get the most obvious first pick, whichever it may be. Go ahead.
All right, I'll take tails.
There we go. No drama, no suspense whatsoever as the coin lands on tails. And, of course, it was going to be tails all along. All right, there's some good ones here. I know you do your research, and I think you'll agree with me. There are some excellent choices, and I have a feeling you're also going to have a few curveballs that you're ready to throw at me, but go ahead.
No curveballs because I got the first pick, and that just wins the draft on its own. So, number one, it's the easiest one. I think we both know what I'm going with. Is it?
Yeah. Are you?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It is one of the most memorable games in NFL history. Started a dynasty. It's the Tuck rule. It's the Patriots in the Foxborough Stadium. That is the easiest pick, and you know it. You know that losing that coin toss lost you this draft. I don't even have to do the rest of the draft.
You know, and I really thought there was a chance that you were going to consider another final game.
Nope.
Just because of it's not a football reason. It was when the Browns. Now, look. Let me. Before I get to my pick, I agree with you.
Yes.
Memorable game, Foxborough Stadium. The last game played there. The snow, the kick, the tuck rule, everything about it. Magical night for the Patriots, and yes, the birth of a dynasty. Okay, and that's the obvious first choice. But you still had to at least wonder about the last game in Cleveland for the original Cleveland Browns when they tore up Memorial Stadium, and it was just a debacle. And the Browns players, you know, it was a debacle in kind of a good way, except for, you know, they were throwing stuff on the field and they were ripping out full rows of seats. But that last game in Cleveland and the build up to that last game, and I think it's one of the reasons why teams are very careful about when they pull the plug on when they're moving. Nobody really wants to. Now, the Raiders are going 3 years. Maybe they figure by the time 3 years rolls around, people will process their feelings of despair. But the last thing you want to do is make it known in November of a football season that you're leaving at the end of that year because you set the stage for the kind of craziness that we haven't seen since the Browns, the original Browns, now the Ravens, played their last game at Memorial Stadium in Cleveland. So that's my first round pick.
Mike, that wasn't even in consideration for my second pick. And
just
that's
you
why
didn't think of it.
I'm me. And, I have it written down. I'll show you. I have that written down. That's why I'm me and you're you. That's why I'm smart and you are dumb. I have the Foxborough pick one.
You have no power here.
Easy.
Go ahead.
Easy. Number two, also easy. The last game at the Vet in Philadelphia. It was the NFC Championship game. The Bucks beat the Eagles, go on to win the Super Bowl. And it was a time when the Eagles, obviously, they didn't have a Super Bowl, title. They were knocking on the door, the Donovan McNabb Eagles. Also, what that stadium was and what it meant to old school football. It was that old turf that was terrible. It was like one of the last turfs like that to go out. The Vet had some unbelievable memories. They had the jail inside. Like the Eagles fans, where Philadelphia and their fan base are born, is the 300 level of that stadium. That is an easy number two. And it was an NFC Championship game. We're not talking about a regular season game like in Cleveland. I just gave you two playoff games, NFC Championship game, last game in Philadelphia at the Vet.
That one's more memorable if the Eagles win it. They lost to the Buccaneers. Who cares about the Buccaneers?
No,
I know. Memorable. I understand. The most memorable final game. I'm telling you that game is more memorable if the home team wins it. That's the point. It's not like they won the Super Bowl there. The Buccaneers still had to go on and win more games. And the Buccaneers are the Buccaneers. Who cared at the time about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? This was about the Eagles playing their last game at Veterans Stadium. Losing that game did take away some of the luster because if it would have been the Cowboys beating them in that game, then you've got something more memorable. It's less memorable because it was the Buccaneers. And oh, by the way, they opened the next Stadium Monday Night Football the following year, and the Buccaneers had come back and beat them again by 17 points. Here's a memorable one because of the circumstances involved as the Dallas Cowboys were wrapping up their long-term stint at that iconic Texas Stadium. It was so ugly on the outside, but there was always something special about the way the game looked when it was played inside. There was something about the lighting. There was something about the feel. You knew instantly when you were watching a football game that was being played at Texas Stadium. It felt next level. It felt special. Even decades after the 70s when we first wow, there's something different about this Texas Stadium atmosphere, it still felt that way. And for their last year in 2008 at Texas Stadium, they handpicked the Baltimore Ravens to be their final home opponent because they thought the Baltimore Ravens, a team they'd be able to beat, so they'd be able to shut the thing down with a regular season victory and everything would be fine, and they could go into the new stadium and they could leave the stadium on a high note. And, of course, that was a Saturday game, and the Ravens came in, and the Ravens had other ideas, and they kicked the Cowboys' butts in the final. So it was just beautiful because the Cowboys wanted that game. They handpicked that game against the Ravens because they wanted an easy win, and the Ravens beat them to destroy the party for the final game ever at what I think is one of the most iconic stadiums. Even though I remember the first time I was in Dallas and the car went past and I could see, it's like, my God, that's hideous. But inside, it was a completely different world.
God watches the Dallas Cowboys play every Sunday. I agree with you that stadium is iconic. I have another iconic stadium for my third and final pick, which has been a complete rout here.
No, you got nothing to say about my last. I know when you like my pick, you just say nothing about it.
Well, I mean, who cares? Again, you're picking regular season games that don't really matter.
Go ahead.
That, it just doesn't really matter when it comes down to it. You don't actually sit there and say, wow, remember that Ravens-Cowboys game? Here's another playoff game I'm giving you, Mike. So for the people scoring at home, I have now given you 3 straight playoff games. I
don't care that it's playoff games. It's what's memorable.
Those need more. They're more memorable. And guess what, Mike? What was your criticism for my last pick? The Eagles didn't win that game, right?
Right.
The Eagles didn't win that game. Well, here you go, Mike. The Atlanta Falcons beat the Green Bay Packers in the iconic Georgia Dome in the NFC Championship game. The Falcons, somewhat downtrodden franchise other than the Super Bowl that they went to when they beat, who'd they beat? Who'd they beat when they went to their other Super Bowl?
Who?
I'm blanking. In 99. Who was that?
You're trying to mess with me.
Shoot.
They beat
I do remember. It was the Vikings. That's right. Yeah. In another stadium that closed down. You fell right into that one. But yeah, this one's another iconic ending. The Georgia Dome, a lot of great events there, and it ends with a bang. Remember that game so vividly because I love watching the Packers lose. The Falcons ran up and down the field that day. The Packers had no answer for them. I also bet the over, so it was a special place in my heart because there's nothing like betting the over and winning it so quickly.
Yeah, but the Georgia Dome, it was only open 20 years. It's got no cachet. It's got no sizzle. It's got no
Super
pop.
Bowls? If you host a Super Bowl, you have pop.
It wasn't a Super Bowl, though. But it wasn't a Super Bowl.
But if you host the Super Bowl, you have pop.
Hosted a Super Bowl. This Pontiac Silverdome hosted a Super Bowl. Who cares just because it hosted a Super Bowl at some point in the past? Nah, that one's not good. You let me down on that one. You know what I thought you were going to do to me? I thought you were going to take the final game ever played at TCF Bank Stadium. I thought you were going to hurt me. I thought you were going to select the game where Blair Walsh went wide left against the Seahawks in a playoff game because that was a throwback old school like the Vikings games at Metropolitan Stadium where it's a clear blue sky but it's it's below 0 is what I'm trying to say. I thought you were going to do that to deliberately hurt me. And I was thinking about doing that. But you know what? If you're going to go chips in the middle of the table, if you're going to go Super Bowl, if you're going to put that kind of sizzle onto your memorability factor of a final game ever played at a given stadium, I'm going all in with you. I'm not hedging like you wanted the guy to do from the Raptors game where he didn't you know what I'm talking about.
Lose,
You got me all twisted.
Of course
Rose Bowl, the last game ever played at the Rose Bowl, the last game that will ever be played at the Rose Bowl because they're never playing another game at the Rose Bowl. That iconic venue with 98,000 people present to watch the Dallas Cowboys shred the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 27. Nobody knew it the last time it was going to be the last game ever played at the Rose Bowl, but it's the last game ever played at the Rose Bowl, and it's memorable. The Cowboys, birth of their dynasty in the 1990s. Leon Lett with his fumble return that Don Beebe hustled and pulled it out of his hands, and I actually won an office pool getting the 2 and the 7 on that from the 52-17 by virtue of the Cowboys not scoring another touchdown. That was a memorable game, and it's even more memorable now because we didn't appreciate it. We didn't know the finality at the time it happened. It's one of those things that, hey, whatever happened to the Rose Bowl hosting Super Bowls? Oh, it's never going to happen again. Well, that was a pretty good time, and that was a pretty good game, and now in hindsight, that's a pretty memorable event. How you like that?
I'm writing down a note real quick because it sounded like you gambled illegally with that Super Bowl square.
That was 27
I'm just going to write a note to call the authorities.
Statute of limitations is passed.
That's not the last game, though. They still play football games there. That's a totally
But it was the
different
last game.
situation.
It was the last NFL game ever played there. It's
That
the last
doesn't,
NFL.
Mike,
Last NFL. It was an NFL stadium.
Of
It was an
course.
NFL stadium, and they don't play there anymore.
You tried to get cute, but the problem with getting cute there is the Rose Bowl still gives us fresh memories every single year. So you don't
And every year, don't you think, wouldn't it be great if they still played the Super Bowl there? Wouldn't you? Don't you think that every year when you see that overhead shot?
Listen, I am on the record. Pasadena, California, January 1st, that is heaven on earth. I've been to 2 Rose Bowls in my life. It is the perfect setting for football. It was basically, it's football heaven. But we still have it, and we still get memories from it all the time.
Not for NFL games. Not for the NFL.
And that stadium will always forever be known as a college football stadium more than anything. So you are so wrong. You tried to get cute, and you fell flat on your face. I'll throw you one more. Candlestick. The 49ers were very good that year. They won. It was the pick at the stick with Navarro Bowman. And, of course, you also had the famous catch with Dwight Clark, and Chris Berman happened to be there. I don't know if you knew that.
And Tom Brady was there.
And Tom Brady was there.
Yeah, young Tom Brady wearing his 49ers jacket. So, okay, so we threw a couple extra in there, whether it's the pick at the stick game or the TCF Bank Stadium, wide left from Blair Walsh, the last game ever played at that college stadium that still has games every year, but it's not NFL games. There's our picks if you're watching on NBCSN. We're going to take a quick break. We'll wrap up this Friday edition of PFT Live right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.